Hi. Just bear with me. I'm sorting out the new camera angle, so just bear with me. Really, really bear with me. Hi. Right. It's so confusing, right? Because I can't see the screen on the camera here, and I can only just see the screen down here, and my eyes are going to be darting all over the place, so please bear with me. Right, so I'm hopefully the right way round. Right, so hi, I'm Becky Alexander Frost, and I own RJF Makes. I've come in a bit early because I have to jet off at 2 o'clock. So I need to finish this at 1:45-ish. So can someone let me know when it's about 1:45, please? Because I really need to end it there. Right, so if you're joining in, it's the sew along of the part 2 of the what are you? Oh yeah, sorry. The Tool Wallet book. Right, so hi. Last week we got on to making this. Right, this part, which is the main body of the bag. Can you just let me know if you can hear me and give me those hearts, just to make sure that I know I'm doing this all right and I've not pressed any wrong buttons or anything. That's awesome, thank you. Right, so today we're going to learn about the binding, and so we're going to do the binding part of the actual main outer part, and then we're going to move on to making the mesh pocket with the binding, and then we're going to make the 2 slip pockets and attaching them to the actual zip pockets inner pages. Now, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Ask below. I won't be able to answer them straight away today. I'll be able to answer them straight in the evening. And if you've missed this show, don't worry. I'll be putting it on YouTube and yeah, and everything. Hi, Laurie. You're right. Right. So, like I say, any questions? My eyes will be darting from here to here because my screen is there. So, right, let's get on to the tutorial. Right, so last week we left off making the clear pocket and adding the zips, making the outer. I do have a confession to make, and I will own up. These parts here, you can sew them either way. So if you notice, when I close this and where the spine will be, the machines are pointing towards the spine. But when I originally did the mock-up, I did the machines pointing towards the actual opening part. So it's up to you what way you actually want to assemble if you're doing it with the panels. Great news, if you ordered the panels will be here tomorrow, so I've got like 5 days of cutting and packing up to do. So yeah, you won't be long until you actually receive them. I think you will receive them before the 24th, as I originally agreed with you, so that's really good. Right, so when you've if you're using the panel as your outer, you got to work out which is going to be your front and your back. So your front will be the one where you've got your button attached, and the back will be where the elastic comes from. So I'm going to say back will be this one for me, and this will be my front. So I'm going to attach the 5-inch elastic, which I will link everything that I've written in the blog posts. There's 2 blog posts in the comments after the video of where to for the cutting out and stuff like that. So we need to find the centre top of that. So I'm just going to fold it in half and mark it. I'm just going to mark it with a pin. Okay, now I've found the centre top. We need to attach the elastic. So I'm going to bring the camera down. Hi, it's so strange to be able to read the writing, just saying. I know, Sandy, I know. Sorry, you got so used to the other way, so let me just get you down here. Right, so the way you do this is you fold it into a U shape and you basically pop it where, join the 2 ends together and pop it where that centre pin is, or that centre mark. Remove your pin, and then you're just going to baste stitch this within your seam allowance. So I've got a size 14 needle for once in my actual machine because I've just run out of size 16s and I've just had to order some. I've got Moon thread, which is Coats polyester thread, because yep, and I'm using just a basic stitch length of a 2.4. I'm just going to keep reversing stitches. Right, so now that's sewn into place. I'll just get rid of that bit. Right, so now that's sewn into place, we need to pop this to one side and we need to make the binding. Now, for those of you are quilters, this is basically the same binding technique that you will do for quilting. So it's not on the bias, it's on the straight of grain, which is salvage. And if you're very lucky, sometimes I don't get this perfect. You might mitre your corners, and sometimes I think this one isn't perfect, but yeah, I'm not a brilliant quilter a binding and stuff like that. So I'm going to teach you how to make the strips and what you need to do for prepping to make it for the whole case. So I'm going to bring down the camera. Right, so between now and the weekend, you'll see quite a large tutorial on how to make binding. So I'm going to quickly do it today because I've just filmed the sewing machine cover, and that has actually got quite a lot of binding on. So I'm going to basically just teach you the basics today, but in between now and Saturday or Sunday, that video will be up with a full-blown tutorial of how to make your binding. Right, so you need to get one of your strips, lay that right side facing up. You need to get your other strip, and that needs to be right side facing down. Now, some quilters do a lot of overhang at the top and on the side, and I prefer a lot of overhang, but some like it just marginal. I'm I'm one of those people that likes to be a bit cautious, and I have written for that extra amount. That extra amount within the actual the allowance of the actual fabric. So as you can see, I've overhanged the top and at the side. And if you're new to quilt binding, you need to, well, I like to draw my lines on. I don't know what professional quilters do, but this is my sore point. I actually do like to draw my the actual lines on. So we're drawing a line from here to here, so that's those two bits there. Ooh. That drawn line now comes my sewing line. So I will sew from corner to corner on my machine using, and now I always drop my stitch length to a stitch length 2. Why do you have the black tape on your extension table? It's cute. Why do you have the black tape on your extension? I have no black tape, princess, on my extension table. Is it just to attach? There's no black tape, sweetheart. Unless you're seeing something. Right, I'm just gonna... So I'm just sewing from corner to corner. I'm not basically doing anything else other than sewing from corner to corner. And, oh my, I've done that wrong. Please ignore me. It's because I'm watching the screen and it's back to front on my screen. Right, start again. Rewind. Right. What you've got to make sure is that when you are sewing from corner to corner, you're going to have a strip going that way. Yeah, it's my foot lever. It's massive foot lever, that's what it is. Right, so I'm just going to sew from corner to corner. Again, sorry about that. Right. So the next thing you need to do is trim from the sewn line this excess off, and you need to trim it back 1/4 inch. So, and you need to trim back the dog ears. I really don't know why they call them dog ears, but they do, don't they? Now we need to actually open up the seam, like so, and we need to press it. Right, so now I've pressed my seam open. You will keep adding loads of strips together. I think it works out about 5 strips without looking at the cutting sheet. Once you've sewn all those strips together, once you've sewn all those strips together, like so, you need to fold it so it's wrong sides together, matching up the two long edges, and you've got a neat fold, and press it all the way along, and you should have quite a large strip. So the next thing we need to do is start attaching it to the actual case. Now if you're a quilter, you probably have neater ways than doing it, but I'm going to teach you as I've been taught as a child, well, when I was a child, when I was quilting. So if I bring down the camera. Right, so I'm going to start off round about the where the spine will be. I'm not going to be stitching it by hand, Sadie. I'm going to teach you how to sew it from the machine. So I'm going to flip this over so it's the plastic side up first, and remember right, so basically I'm sewing from the plastic side because as I put the binding on, my foot will be on the fabric. If I was to sew the binding on the front side and then flip it over and sew it to the back, part of my foot will be on the plastic, and I do find my foot actually sticks to the plastic. So I'm best if I sew it on the plastic side first, then flip it over and sew it to the front side to finish off the binding. Right, so I'm going to leave around about 4 or 5 inches excess, and I'm going to start off where the actual spine will be. I'm just going to clip one clip into place there. Now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and start round about where the clip mark is. Right, so the remember it's 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. I'm still going to be doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm knocking my stitch length up to a number 3. That's a number 3 low if you're watching. And I'm just going to reverse my stitch a little at that start. Right, so I'm going to sew to the point where it's 1/4 inch away from this edge here, and then I'm going to lift up my needle. Now if you're a quilter, you might say, oh no, you need to leave your needle down. That's fine. If you've got a better way, just do the better way, but I've always been taught to take the needle up, keep the thread attached, and pull it away slightly. The next thing you need to do is get your finger underneath. I'm hoping you can see this. The next thing you need to do is get your finger underneath the binding and twist. And then I like to clip this into place just on the safety precaution. So this angle, this fold here, should be about 30 degrees away from this edge. I'm not very good with my degrees, but it's approximately 30 degrees away from that edge. And now I'm just going to take it back to my sewing machine, and I'm going to start about 1/4 inch in. Doesn't have to be approx. And I'm going to reverse my stitch. So the first part that I sew is I'm reversing my stitch, and then once I've reversed my stitch, I'm just going to go carry on sewing straight. As you'll notice, as I've just gone past, I've left the actual zip pulls into the centre. It's just so they don't catch up on the plate as I'm sewing. Right, so I'm just coming to where that 1/4 inch is. Lifting up my needle, pulling her out, getting my finger underneath and twist. And that will give me the 30 degree angle that I need. I'm going to clip that into place. And I'm going to start about 1/4 inch on. And reverse my first few stitches. Every so often I'm stopping and checking to make sure my binding is straight and it's next to the edge, so both edges are matching up. And twist. I think I've touched some alcohol. Many of you will know that I'm allergic to alcohol, and I think I've touched some alcohol in the last hour. My hand keeps itching, so excuse the rash that keeps appearing. Right, I'm coming to the last corner now, so I'm gonna twist it around. Right, so I'm coming to the last corner, and obviously I've got this overhang here. I'm going to sew to approximately about 2 or 3 inches down this one side here. And then I'm going to reverse my stitch. Right, so I'm going to pull that out. Now, some people do the next step at an angle. I haven't got the confidence to do this next step at an angle, so I'm going to do it at just basically a row of stitches, well, a straight stitch width. Right, so what I tend to do is this piece that I started off with, I pull it to about there, which is about 3 inches away from where I sewed before. I think I quite like the way you're binding. I don't do it like that, but I can't get the life of me remember how I normally do it. Right, so as you can see, I'm pinching it together quite taut, so there'll be a bit of pull here and a bit of pull this side, and I pin it together. Like so, and go. Hi Susan, you alright? Right, so I've pinned it together. Then I get my friction pen. Sorry, I keep scratching. Oh, right, get my friction pen, and where I've pinned it, I actually draw a line. Across, so I'm hoping you can see that. So I've drawn a line across, and then I do that for the other side. As well. You're wondering why is she drawing the line? Or will be revealed. So you take your pin out and you get your quilter's rule or a little thing that you can measure with, and then flip that over, and then from that drawn line I measure 1/4 inch and draw another line. I'll do that for both pieces. So, not the first drawn line, but the second drawn line is where we're now going to cut. So I'm just going to cut that piece off, and that piece. Now the longer piece keep, because you will need that for your inner pockets, which we will come on to next week. Right, flipping that back over. What we then need to do is open up these. I'm going to bring them together, and you will have to pin this because obviously you can see it's quite tight. And pin it again. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew these two pieces together 1/4 inch away. So yeah, you will have to scrooch up your bag a bit, or your case, or whatever you're sewing. Right, now you'll notice as I open that, it naturally springs into life. But what I want to do is, just to take that little bit of bulk away, is to open up that seam and just give it a good finger press open. Now I do this for my quilting as well, and I know there's going to be some quilters going out there saying they don't do it on the straight, they do it on the diagonal. I've tried that and I can't get my head around it. But it's each to their own, isn't it, really? As you can see, that's quite taut, and then I'm just basically going to go and sew straight from where I left off, reversing my stitch slightly. And going to where I started off, reversing my stitch. And hey presto, your binding's partly way done. I've got loads of pieces of thread hanging off, but I'll sort that out in a bit. Right, so now we need to deal with the corners. First of all, you remember that thread was still attached. I need to trim that back because we've reversed our stitch. It's gone over the stitch and it's locked it into place. So I'm just going to cut those off. Now, if you've got a tailor's awl or a purple fang, you might need it for this next step, or a stiletto, because it means that your fingers will be out the way when we're sewing the binding to the front. So we've now got the corners. We just need to trim them slightly away here. You can get friction pens. Yeah, you can. I get mine from Asda, and I can get them in a pack of 3 for £7.99 rather than buying a pack of 2 or 1 for like £3 or £4. So we're just going to trim it at a slight angle. I'm not kidding, it's marginal angle, and we're going to do that for all 4 corners. Right, so the next thing we need to do is flip this over and bring the binding to the front. I'm just going to pin this elastic out the way. Making sure I don't get into that plastic layer, because I don't want to get it into that plastic layer. Right, okay. Right, so the next thing you want to do is just draw it to the front, like so. I tend to clip like crazy around this part, so I'm just going to do that. When I come to a corner, you're going to, like a flat bed sheet, you're going to make it like an envelope, so it's got a mitre. So let me just so you basically want this part to be a 45-degree angle. And just keep clipping all the way around. I know this part's quite boring, I do apologise, but if you want it neat, my advice is to clip it. I always put a clip in the corner so that 45-degree angle where that mitre is so it doesn't come undone when I'm going around. I do that with my quilts as well. So what is everybody up to at the weekend? I know what I'll be doing. I'll be cutting all that fabric out. It's having to come in 5 rolls, and it's the largest amount you guys have ever ordered, and I appreciate you guys ordering that amount from me. The manufacturers did as well, because it means that they said that it means that what I'm doing is working and they're happy with the costings and stuff, and that means that you guys are happy with the costing. Right, just last bit. Right, so I like to start off on the where the spine is, and I use my tailor's awl, but if you've got a purple fang or if you've got a stiletto, that does exactly the same thing. Now I'm going to stitch as close as I can. Your costings are first class. That's nice to hear, Wendy. Yeah, I know the continuous fabric was quite expensive, but to buy, but it's a one-off piece, and I'm only going to be releasing it once or twice a year, that fabric. So yeah, There was a few people saying that it was expensive, but I couldn't make it any less. And to be fair, I'm not actually making that much profit on that continuous fabric. Anyway, bygones. Right, so we're going to stitch really close to where that fold is. I'm not kidding. I think it's like 1/16 of a way from that folded edge. And I'm making my stitch length to a stitch length 3. And the reason why I've got my tailor's awl is if I'm noticing my binding slipping away, I'm going to draw it back to where I need it to be. Right, so I am going to reverse stitch a bit, and this I do actually go quite, not slow, but I go at a moderate pace for me to control it, so I know I'm actually sewing quite close to the fold. As I've noticed, my binding's just slipping away a bit there. Now I've just taken the clip out, and I'm just going to hold that fold into place with the tailor's awl. And make sure my needle is down. Make sure my needle is down when I lift up the presser foot so I can pivot. Right. And I'm just going to hold that fold into place. Motine, wow, I love Motine. Grew up around Motine, to be fair. Making sure my needle's down. And I'm just going to pivot round again. Now, I notice my zip pull is actually going to be in the way of my presser foot, so as I've got a clip there, I'm just going to lift up my presser foot and pull that zip out the way so it's not interfering with my stitches. And to the last bits. And so what is everybody sewing at the moment? Because I know a lot of you are waiting for your panels and stuff like that. So in the background I'm designing a revamp pattern of 2 patterns. I'm doing the higher class bag, and that's coming as 2 sizes. Yes, 2 sizes, you heard that correct. And the book bag, and that's coming as 2 sizes as well. My binding isn't neat. Actually, you need to really see it up close, Susan. Really do need to see it up close. Right. Right, so just trim that off. Remove the needle from the actual the pin from the. I'm not going to sew my button onto the very last. It's the very last step that I actually do. So yeah, that is the case outer, front and back done. You'll notice, and I'm going to be honest, because I'm an honest person, I've actually stitched onto the fabric, onto the plastic around. You can't get away, you can't do anything about that if you're stitching from the front. Unfortunately, you just can't get away with that, unfortunately, but you can't really tell from the front, and to be fair, you can't really tell from the back. So right, so the next thing we need to do is the mesh pocket. Right, so the mesh pocket, just make sure I got this the right way. Yep. Right, so the mesh has got it's not equal measurements, so you're going for the longest measurement, and that will need to sit, pretend this is your inner page, that will need to sit obviously against, if you did it the other way, it'd be onto your binding, so you need it to be so it's just in between your binding pieces. So we're going to do the binding that goes on top of your mesh pockets. So unlike your quilting binding, this works like your double folded binding rather than your single folded binding. So I've done a bit of prep work. So what I did was fold it in half and pressed, then reopened it up and pressed the 2 long sides into the wrong side into the center and pressed, and then basically I gave it a good press, and it works out just under half an inch width. So if I bring it down, right, so I'm going to get some quilter's tape because, you know, I can't go a tutorial without quilter's tape. And just going to press that and go. Right, so I'm going to run quilter's tape on the wrong side of the bottom fold and the top fold. So my tape isn't sticky on that end, so I've just overhung it and I'm going to cut it off. Yeah, Sally Ann, I actually do my quilts with the tape. I started it about 4 years ago, and that's when the love of quilters tape come to me. I had an email back from the Quilters Tape Company, and they are thinking of sponsoring me with the Quilters Tape, so I'm actually really chuffed. After all that time, Vix was on Sewing Quarter saying, you need to get sponsorship. Well, I've picked up the courage, and, well, Jenny and Lisa Lamb barged me into speaking to the company and getting sponsorship. Right, so I've peeled off the one backing, and the edge of the actual mesh needs to come to the centre of where that original fold was. It's just having the guts to go out there and ask for stuff. I haven't got that, to be fair. I haven't got the guts to do stuff like that, but yeah, I have now. What's the worst that can do? They say no. Right, so I'm going to peel off this backing tape now. Right, and then I'm just going to fold this over. And you want it to if you're free on Friday, Jenny Jackson and Lisa Lamb start their new sewing chat show. So, or whatever they're doing, So Crazy Girls. I'm joining in because I'm watching, and those two crack me up as it is. So I'm hoping that they're very funny. Right, so I've now stuck those together. I'm just going to sew about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I'm using a stitch length 3, number 3. What I will do is, if you don't know where to find Jenny and Lisa, I will drop it in the description, the group that they should be going live in. Right, so I've just stitched this one. I'm just going to quickly do this side. Once again, I've prepped the binding. Just going to stick some tape on. It should be the Crazy Girls and Fluff Ball, because I know Lisa Lamb's little pooch is going to come into that somewhere, and when they're filming them. It's such a cute dog. Excuse me. Right, so I'm just going to, obviously, once again, peel off that backing tape. And stick this into the centre. Now, if you've bought this Annie mesh, you don't want to pull it because it can distort. And I found that out with my first bag. So if I just quickly show you. So as you can see, this one's quite taut, but I actually pulled this one and it doesn't actually sit right. So yeah, so don't pull the mesh as it will distort the pocket. I think it's to do with how it's cross-hatched, and because as you can see, it's got like quite a bit of a stretch going on, and yeah, you don't want your things falling out. Right, so just peel that off. Right, I'm just going to sew that into place. Thanks, Teresa. Right, so you'll notice overhang on the binding. Don't worry about that. We will deal with that when we come to attach this to the centre part of the bag. So I'm going to pop this to one side, and we won't be actually touching that now until next week. We're going to move on to the working on the outer zip pockets. Okay. Right, okay, so someone's just told me it's nearly time, but what I want to do is just quickly sew at least one slip pocket. So this is this part here. We're just going to sew them together. I'm just going to show you one. I don't need to show you both of them. So you're going to get one of your outer pieces and one of your lining pieces, and pop those right sides together. And just clip. Could the yeah, you could do, Princess. I'm going to be separating though that mesh pocket up into sections because I didn't do it in the first when I made the original. But yeah, you can use the elastic on the pocket if you wanted to. There's nothing stopping you, and you can yeah, you could run it through that binding if you're very careful, if you're very lucky, because we've only sewn it really close to where the two folded edges are, and yeah, you can run some elastic through that if you want to make it a taut pocket. Right, so what we're going to do is obviously we'll put those right sides together, this slip pocket. I've just drawn on 2 lines here because I'm not going to stitch in between those pieces. I'm just going to stitch all the way around the 3 sides, well, the 4 sides, starting here and finishing there. And I'm going to go down to a stitch length 2.4, and I'm doing 1/4 inch. Right, so I've reversed my stitches. Oh. So I've reversed my stitches at the start and at the end. And then I'm just going to trim off the corners. And then just going to get the old trusty chopstick, pokey tool, purple fang, whatever you want to use. I'm just going to poke this out. No, I've made this one. And we're just going to poke all this out. So my next phase of photography equipment is to have a second camera, so I don't have to keep moving the camera to different levels. But that will come later on in the year, but I'm halfway there. Like I said, I promised you I'll get there slowly. Right, so we need to poke the two raw edges up inside the bag, into the pocket. We're just going to press that. And thanks, Wendy. And then I'm just going to press all over. Now we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the top edge. So I'm just going to quickly do that now. I'm changing it to a stitch length 3. And I'll just tell you the next step, but I will do this off camera. So you're going to get one piece of your pocket inner, pocket outer, because you got 4 of this size and of the outer, and then you got 4 of the lining. So what you need to do is fold this in half and just give it a finger press. Then we need to fold this in half. I still chuckle when people call me Fred. I haven't told my parents that yet about Fred. They know people are starting to call me other stuff, but I haven't told them. Hi, Margaret. I haven't told them that people have started to call me Fred. Right, so I'm folding this in half and just giving it a centre crease. And then from one of the long edges, this will come your top, where the zip will sit eventually. You need to measure down 1 3/4. No, actually, so it's 1 1/2. I forgot then. It's 1 1/2 down, and you're going to match up your centre crease to your centre crease, your 2 centre creases. Right, and then you're just going to pin it into place like so. Then, not touching the top part of the pocket, not touching this top part, we're going to sew down this side, the 2 short edges and the bottom, making sure we catch where we folded up the actual lining, the pocket into the actual inside. And you're going to stitch all the way around, reverse your stitches a few times, and I'll just quickly do that. Then you're going to repeat this complete whole process, even making your slip pocket for the other slip pocket. That's if you want 2 slip pockets. And I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch away from the edge all the way around. Now at this point you need to decide whether you want to divide this pocket up into sections. I'm going to just quickly divide one of these pockets up because it'd be a nice place to put my glue pen, because I'll be carrying my EPP around in this. So I'm going to go for the centre crease. And then I'm just going to measure 1.5 inches away from the edge and draw a line. Yep, draw a line, just a faint line. I'm just going to sew on that line. That means that I can fit my pens, to at least 2 of my glue pens in there. And then I can fit on the larger pocket where my glue sticks will go, the actual refills. Right, back to me. So you'll need to do that for both slip pockets and one other piece of the actual zip part. And if you want to, it's up to you. If you divide them up, it's totally up to you. And yeah, so next week we will complete this complete section in the center, attach it to the spine, and then I'll show you how to cover the button if you're doing a cover button. And yeah, and sew it on, and then hey presto, it's finished. Now I noticed, I can't remember the lady's name. She's already actually made one of these in the actual group. She did something that I actually thought, oh, I'm not going to do that, but I actually seen it now, and I wish I did. So I'm going to add tabs on my zip. Now, thank you I can't remember your name, but thank you ever so much for pointing that out, because when I was doing my binding, I found it quite chunky when I was going over the zip, and I had like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 12 layers there, plus a zip. So to cut down that bulk, I'm going to do some zip tabs on my zips. So I'm going to say you'll need 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and you need 4 of those. And I will add that onto the blog post. I'll just add it in as an extra edit. But yeah, so this time next week I'll be finishing off. And yeah, so yeah, thanks ever so much for joining me. I've got to jet off because I've got a doctor's appointment soon. Anyway, have a nice day and see you soon. Bye.